Welcome to Chik, the podcast where the girl with many titles talks about life, the good and the bad, and everything around it. We're going to sit, chat, share life stories and experiences, from business to relationship. Hi guys, and welcome back to the Chik podcast. Today I am joined by Ellie.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
Yeah, doing all right. Just a bit of a slow start, just kind of doing some admin before the call. Got a coffee, those kinds of things.
Yeah, to be fair, I feel like I need a cup of tea. But right, so I'm going to let Ellie introduce herself in a second. But for people that listen to the podcast, we've got our challenge of the week to start off with. In the middle, we're going to have our how are we actually doing, and then we're going to end off with win of the week. So we'll start off with who are you, what do you do, where are you from, what encompasses Ellie?
Sure. So I am Ellie. I am originally from Oregon. I live in Northern Ireland now for about 5.5 years. I've got my citizenship for Ireland and the UK pending. Yeah. And we're doing this, we're on a really odd path to hopefully some fairly big digital nomad-y type stuff. So first getting the long-term permanent residency here, then hopefully doing the same for Paul in America, and then being able to spend 6 months here, 6 months there, etc. Yeah, it's a long path though, because honestly, I have permanent residency in the UK now. But if I ever left for like more than 2 years, so say we got stuck in another pandemic, I would start over. I would not, it would be like I never lived here. So I have to go for the citizenship. So that's where we're at. I run my own business. I've been doing that in various formats and for about 5 years, 5 years in January. And I help businesses with all things tech. So I'm a big systems geek, and I help people streamline, automate, systematize their processes. I design websites. That's probably the biggest chunk of what I do. But the reason I design websites is it's because it's the customer facing home for your systems. So I get really geeky about all things systems, templates, software that really helps small business owners, because I think people can kind of get freaked out about where to start, but it makes such a big difference. So that's me. In my free time, I crochet, hunt down craft beer, dog sit, because I'm obsessed with dogs, but I'm not in a place to have one of my own for right now. And yeah, that's about it.
Oh, I love that so much. And do you know what? I never thought I'd be so excited to talk about systems. And for people that, obviously we're going to talk about other generic stuff, but systems just make such a massive difference. So how did you get into what you do? Because obviously you've worked for yourself for 5.5 years, but you also had a full-time job before.
Yeah. So I've always sort of been the like systems person. I've told this story on my own podcast before, but like my dad and brother and me, when I was younger, it was just the three of us.
Yeah.
And and then we had one of those rugs, the ones that have like a race car track on them.
Yeah.
And my dad and brother would be like down playing cars, and I'm lining all the toy cars up by size, shape, and color. And that's fun for me. Like I'm a freak. Yeah. So like I am Monica Geller. And yeah, so I've always been a systems person, and I didn't realize until I was an adult that comes from anxiety. I have an anxiety disorder, and creating systems in the world makes me feel safe. Yeah. And didn't know that until I like started realizing I had an anxiety issue when I was about 17. And that transition from like high school to uni was like, whoa, for me. When all of this stuff, I was like, my parents were like, yeah, therapy. And I was like, 'cause luckily I grew up in a very good household. My parents worked in mental health. They believed in therapy. But yes, anyway, so back to the systems. So I ended up working a lot of admin jobs throughout uni and beyond, all while getting a biology degree, thinking I was going to be a physio. And then in my final year of uni, my senior year, I was like, no, not going to be a physio, because in America, that's a doctorate program, and I'm not spending like upwards of $250,000 to see necks and knees and backs for the rest of my life. I loved the environment. It's such a holistic, it's a really, really nice place in medicine where you actually get to see people get better.
Yeah.
You get to spend consistent time with your patients, which doesn't happen in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
It's also a really nice blend. It's a place where a lot of Eastern and Western medicine connect.
Yeah.
I loved that whole a lot about it, but it was just like you see the same injuries over and over, and it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyway, started my business because I moved over here, married my partner. So I was still sort of figuring out what that next phase of my career would be.
Yeah.
Met Paul and was like, well, shit, I need something that can be anywhere.
Yeah.
So didn't know how I wanted to break into the online business world, but I was like, you know where I can start? I can be a virtual assistant. I can do that in my sleep.
Love it.
So I started that way and very quickly became a tech VA because there was nobody over here doing it.
Yeah.
There was loads and loads of general admin VAs, actually not even that many. When I first started as a virtual assistant in Northern Ireland, nobody knew what a virtual assistant was. And when you
Wow.
explained it to them, there was one gal in Northern Ireland that everyone knew that went, oh, like Allison. I was like, yes, like
Wow.
Allison. But so yeah, 5 years ago, virtual assistants was completely new over here, but it was really big in America.
Yeah.
So anyway, I became the person that people were like, I need to start scheduling my social media. I need an accountancy software. I need some project management. I need to create templates for my emails. I need like these things in place that make my business easier. I need a
Yeah.
booking software. That was like my number one thing. It's still one of my number one things because it's one of the easiest things that people take forever to implement. Can be
Yeah.
done in a day, save you hundreds of hours in your business.
That's for
Um,
me.
yeah. So there was nobody else doing it, and it came really naturally to me. So I really quickly ended up in that space. And then I quit my job as a legal secretary, and I was in it was a really small company, so loved that job because I got to wear like all the hats. I ran their social media, I planned their events, like I did everything.
Yeah.
Um, and then yeah, left my job and was very lucky to be immediately like fully booked.
That's good.
But I work and up until very recently, I've primarily worked with solo entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Um, and so I was like really overwhelmed because again, I have anxiety and
Yeah.
I would have loads and loads of tiny clients that would need me. I wouldn't know when they would need me. You
Yeah.
know, they'd be on retainer packages, but they could request my help at any time throughout the week or month.
Yeah.
And I was really overwhelmed with not knowing what was going to hit my desk on any given day. And
Yeah.
all the emails, there were so many emails.
Yeah.
I'm an inbox zero freak. Not in the truest sense, like I don't actually expect to hit inbox zero, but if I have over 20 emails, I'm freaked out. And
I'd stress you out. And honestly, it genuinely, like even thinking about it, it stresses me out. And I've had to say to myself, do you know what? Eventually you are going to have someone that you can delegate to that can sort all of this out, because I'm now at the point where it would take me too long and take me away from like more important things to do, that
mm,
I'm having to deal with looking at it. Like I went through a few messages last week because again, when my mental health's really bad, I'm so bad with messages, emails, and so on. I sat in the airport last week and cleared so many notifications and literally felt like this weight had been lifted off my chest. So I completely get that.
when I was a VA, I used to do that for people. And I think there's tricks to it that make it a lot easier than some people expect. You know, if you can search a specific term or something and delete all emails with that term. Um,
Yeah.
so if you're getting like a lot of like email subscriptions, you can search all the types for that letter, for that
Yeah.
thing. Um, anything that says the word like sale or percent off, you know, and
Yes.
it really can make it a lot faster of a job.
That's a good idea.
Tricks of the trade. Um, but yeah, so that's when I pivoted to project-based work. So I still design systems, and that's when I started really doing a lot of websites, but I do them on a project basis. So somebody will come to me and be like, I need a system that does X, Y, and Z. And I say, okay. And I have a system that's designed to get all the information I need from them. And then I turn around and design the system and train them on it within a week. Usually about 3 days, business days.
Wow. That's so cool. Okay, so I'm going to pause here and we're going to mix the challenge of the week and how are you really, because I feel like a lot of what you're talking about, it'll just keep leading on from each other. And there's already stuff that you've said where I'm like, oh yeah, I completely forgot I'm like this as well. So yeah, what is your challenge of the week and how are you really doing?
Challenge of the week is I am building a Shopify website for the first time. I have specialized in Squarespace for years now. And I have a new client who wanted me to build a Shopify site. And I am teaching myself an entirely new platform. It's not that I've never used it, but I've never built a website at this scale.
Yeah.
I've built just the shop for people who need it to integrate into, like, say they sell mostly on Facebook or something.
Yeah.
But I've never built like an actual all-out website with it. So that
You'll love it though, because it's very organized. I like Shopify. I used to use it for my for Nina, the baking mix like business I had, but I found that just for organization and the way that like the customer like user face of it was just, I absolutely adored
yeah,
it.
I'm struggling to find things. They're not in the place that like, because I've worked in Squarespace so long, they're not intuitive to where my brain would be. So I'm like spending a lot of time being like Googling settings. Like, how do I change this thing? But I also, because it's my very first design, Shopify is quite more of a code heavy platform for as far as customizing visually. Like, so I've bought a really nice theme for it. And so that's given me quite a big head start, because otherwise I would be like, I have to code this and learn everything.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So yeah, but as far as how am I really, I'm not entirely sure how to answer that. I'm much better than yesterday. I woke up, I feel like I got a really good night's sleep. But I feel very low. I feel like I could cry at any minute, and I felt that way for about 2 days.
Oh.
And I would say I'm PMSing, but I have an IUD, so I have no idea. There's nothing really wrong. Like, there's no massive stressor that's causing this, which usually there would be. I know myself pretty well. So I would say it's probably is hormonal of some shape, but my hormones are fairly limited due to this birth control. So
to be fair, when we first got on, I thought like you weren't your normal self, because normally you are very like peppy and
I am a
normal, but
bubbly, loud, exuberant
there's
human. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not bad by any means, but I do feel a little like off. And then I told Paul, I was talking to Paul yesterday, and yesterday was a bit worse. I like worked from the sofa yesterday while watching Girlfriends and Gilmore Girls. But Paul went out yesterday flying, which is really cool. He's just gotten his pilot's license, and he phoned me on his way back. He always does, to let me know he's still alive and etc. And I was like, by the way, like, I am not in a super healthy, fun place today. Just like warning you before you come home. And then one of the things I was doing in Mondays for me are usually a combo of business and life admin, like just kind of stuff we didn't get done over the weekend because we were seeing family, combined with stuff I haven't gotten done in my business because I work on that kind of Thursday through Friday. So anyway, was doing that, and I was like, we've been looking at how to move him back to America. And we found our solution. It's this really cool software called Boundless. You get like an attorney built in, and it's way cheaper than having like but anyway, doing that whole thing. And then once we found out, I was like, well, we should just do it. And he's like, and of course then it's a stressful process. And he's like, why did you want to do this today when you're feeling like this today? And I was like, I don't know, but we're almost done. Let's just get through it.
Oh, totally feel, yeah. Do you know what? It's funny because I had to work from bed for half the day and then work from the sofa for half the day, take a bit of time off and then start working at night again, because it was a productive day. But I was
Your brain seems to work really well at night. You work at night quite a lot. You're like, that must be where your brain is really just in the zone.
Yeah. And I think part of my challenge that I'm having, so I suppose my challenge of the week at the moment is still trying to get my head around like business life the way it is now, because I'm having the normal like stresses of cash flow, getting new clients in, knowing that clients are coming, but they're not coming as quickly as you'd want them to be, but still having to kind of like manage the team and be positive and do all of that whilst doing all the work that needs to be done. So I think in general terms, I'm okay, but there's a little bit of me there, and especially because like I've come out of my depressive state and I feel a lot better within myself, but there's still that niggling of, especially my anxiety this week isn't great, and it's little things that I feel like I'm worrying about things that normally get sorted out, but because I can't see, I'm like you, I'm very much a systems person, but I just can't always sort the systems myself, and that then stresses me out. So
Yeah, so I know you have a team behind you. Like you've
yeah.
got other marketing specialists and things within your team, but do you have an admin support in your team?
So I was hoping that one of the girls came back, and I was hoping she'd go into being an admin support, but she had a second baby, and she's kind of readjusting to life. And my whole thing has always been, I don't want to ever make anyone feel like they're going to be discriminated against. The reason I wanted to work for myself was because I was told, you realize you can't have it all. You can't have the family, the work, the life, all of that. And I'd rather wait until she's in a comfortable position for us to be able to start the admin part and the bits that maybe might stress her out. So I think whilst I'm waiting for that, I'm dealing with the bits that would stress me out. And to be fair, they are like they're so good because she's the person that would have like organized our like meeting and everything, and it made me really smile because it came to, I don't use Zoom very often, but I came into Zoom and I was like, oh crap, I can't remember where it is again because it's scheduled. I was like, this is so good because it's all been scheduled to a point where I might feel anxious, but I know that I've got the rest of the day to get on with all the things I need to do. I know that the bits of admin that she does get on with, that's all completely sorted, and we're okay. So I think I'm just trying to readjust to that life of, it's okay to not be 9 to 5 per se, but not feel too guilty about it, because I know I do work well at night, but then I have to like readjust my weeks where, like on Sunday night, for example, in last night, I stayed up a bit later to get some stuff done. But then I'll need to get my routine back to like a 9 to 5 for the end of the week, just because I've got a few meetings that do start early. So I think in my mind, it's just really difficult still sometimes to balance that life of what works for me and what works for clients.
Yeah, but also like you can run your business and run what works for you. Like I
Um,
only take client calls from 3 to 5 p.m. Like that's it. Like I
oh, I
don't
love
do any,
that.
like I take consultation calls. I do have mostly from 3 to 5 p.m. I don't take any calls on Mondays. But I do offer one, like I think it's a Thursday morning that I offer consultations just in case there's somebody that might want in. But when I was recording my own podcast Fridays, it was only on Fridays. Like you
Ah,
have the power to control that. I think it's something that,
yeah.
it can be so easy, especially like as an entrepreneur, but especially as a woman entrepreneur to be
Mhm.
like expect ourselves to bend to meet our
Yeah.
clients' needs. But you're running a business that's supporting theirs.
Yeah.
You're the boss in when it comes to, in a sense.
Yeah.
Um, I think I think that it's a really interesting thing. You wouldn't go to your accountant and be like, my meeting has to be at 7 a.m. They're like, no, we
Yeah.
don't open till 10, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I think when you see yourself as that type of business owner, it becomes a bit of a shift. So if you work better afternoon, schedule all your meetings afternoon. Like,
You know what? It's so funny you're saying that, because I know for the podcast, I've put it in the slots where I know that I am completely fine doing them. Because normally Tuesdays I try and take the day off, but I've said I'll do podcast stuff in the morning, then it gives me the rest of the day to like do nothing. And then the other like slots I've got are slots I'm really comfortable with. But I think like you're saying, I've got a client at the moment. I think that's also not helping, where it very much feels like I'm an employee. And it's like, okay, but I might be fitting into your team as a part of the general team, but I'm not your employee. You're still my client. And yeah, that's a very good point.
it
I
is
mean,
tough to set those boundaries, but I think one of
yeah,
the easiest things to do to set those boundaries is using an appointment scheduler.
yeah,
Book an appointment. They will see what times are available, and that's it. Like,
yeah, that's so true. So, okay, so which scheduler would you suggest then that people would use, or do you have different types for different types of people?
yeah, I do have different types for different types of businesses that I recommend. If you're a service-based business and you're just doing like consultation calls, client calls,
Mm,
pretty much that's it. Maybe booking, say a podcast or something, but you're just doing essentially one-to-ones.
yeah,
I usually recommend Calendly because the interface is so easy, both for
yeah,
you and for the people who are booking appointments. Like it's just
yeah,
really easy to use. If you are booking classes, if you're needing package like people to be able to book packages for appointments, if you need to take payment plans, then I usually recommend Acuity which is also now known as Squarespace scheduling. Squarespace bought it,
Oh,
but you don't need to use Squarespace to use it.
oh, that's good.
Um, like you will log into a Squarespace account, but you can just use scheduling.
Yeah,
And then finally, what I recommend to more and more people is to get a bigger system. So if you're a service provider and you've kind of feel like maybe you've outgrown that customer relationship management piece where
yeah,
you need, maybe customized emails that are like automated. You need scheduling and you need your payment reminders and you need like all these little pieces that kind of go together, contracts.
yeah.
That's when you need to probably get something like Dubsado or Honeybook, and those all have a scheduler built in, and that's what I use at this stage. But I used Calendly for years until I got here.
Yeah, oh, that's amazing. Because I think Dipsada, there's a marketeer I know that uses that, and she put me onto that, and it looks great. But it's funny
Yeah.
how I think, like you were saying before, that like how organized you are linking to things like anxiety. So how have you found then building the business, living in Northern Ireland, having to obviously go back and forth? Because I know how stressful it is for me, and that's just going back and forth to England. Never mind knowing that your family's halfway around the world. Like when me and Sean were apart, like my ex, that was so stressful trying to manage all that. Because I think it's exciting that you can work from anywhere in the world, but the realities of that, especially when family don't completely understand that I might be home, but I am working. Like, how have you found managing all of that with learning what you want to do and how
Yeah.
you want to do it?
Yeah. So I at this stage, because so much of our like we're in like heavy savings mode to move back to America and have enough money for all of that. So we don't go back very often. So usually I try not to work when I go home,
Yeah,
but that hasn't always been an option. Like when I was very first starting my business, when you're new to this, you don't really take time off because
yeah,
you're well, you really should, but it's like you've convinced yourself that you can't afford to,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Time is money,
Which
literally.
you need to learn how to make to build your money around being able to take time off, and that's a skill.
Yeah,
And also like when you're a new business owner, like we just talked about, it's learn to build boundaries as you go.
yeah,
Um, and so, yeah, didn't take any time off. I was like working like in mornings before like almost every trip going home. I'd be like, I'm gonna get up at like 6:30 and get a couple hours of work in before my everybody else in the world gets up. That only works to an extent because my dad and my entire side of that family, like they're like up at 6. My brother's up at 6, like
yeah,
so. But normally they're up that early because when they need to go to work. And then yeah, so it's very much like squeezing it around things. Um, Last time we were home, we actually just got back from a trip home and I didn't work almost at all. I did do a little bit of like reading some emails and stuff. And I took one potential new client meeting because he was from my high school and he
yeah.
messaged me on Instagram and I was like, oh, I'm in town. Like,
Oh,
and that's the Shopify site I'm building.
amazing.
Yeah. So, but also like it goes the other direction. The whole point of it, I never really expected to be able to be like, I'm just gonna like go and work while visiting home because we're not home enough for that to really
Yeah,
work. But on the other side is the whole reason I built my business was to be able to go when I needed to. And so
yeah,
like in April, my grand was in the hospital and I was able to just go and I was working on the airplane, in the
yeah,
airport, at her hospital bed when she was sleeping, taking calls in her bed at night when she, once the hospital visiting hours ended, like I was sitting in her room, like
yeah,
hunched over working. And yeah, a couple of balls got dropped, but my clients knew what was going on. I'm not like, I think the other thing about business that's really stressful, especially when is you feel like you have to be a professional. You feel like you have to be a professional.
yeah, yeah,
But I find that just being real, like I'm a
yeah,
human
yeah,
and people tend to respect that.
yeah,
So needing to drop everything to go see my sick grand, everyone was like, okay,
yeah.
see you when you get back. Like,
I think even just as women, it's that pressure of we have to be perfect, especially in business, because we don't get the same chances. I don't know who I was talking to the other day. I was basically saying, I work with some amazing clients, and most of my clients at the moment that are like retainer clients are men, and I get like the ad hoc women. And the women, it's a lot easier to kind of just to understand how we all work and the things that we're going through. Whereas for the men, they just have such a different experience in business and a different life in business. Like I've got one, and sometimes I sit and I look and I go, like I'm so lucky that I've built this like agency. Within 2 years, I've got way further than I did with my previous businesses. But that's because obviously I've built experience. I worked with different types of people. I know how to like fine tune the things I was doing. Whereas I look at some clients sometimes and I think, if I'd have had these opportunities, like this investment, the balls you have just to, because for me, especially like you were saying, when you drop the ball, you're human. But like I found my strength in like being open to clients, especially when my mental health is bad, just by saying, okay, you might see me, yes, working at 2 o'clock in the morning. Normally that's when I'm trying, like that's my time. But if you see ABC, then normally it means this, and it's nice to explain that. But then you look at, like, you don't, like for men, like there's one client I engage for, and I've realized I love doing his engagement because I don't have to I don't have to apologize for anything. Like I could just say, no, I don't want to do that. And that's it, because like, I'm him at that time. But it's those little things where I'm like, you have it so easy where you can just say yes, no, no one questions you, no one thinks, what are they doing?
Yeah,
And
you don't feel like you have to explain yourself when you're a
yeah,
man
yeah. And it's
because the
just
world has told you you don't have to explain yourself.
exactly. And it is, there's a lot of unlearning as well that we have to do just to be able to then move forward and find like our way of working. And I think that
Mm.
gets me frustrated sometimes. It's like, I hate that I'm having to do this.
Mm. Yeah, it is definitely a learning curve to like own your space, to
Mm,
take up space,
yeah,
to like it takes time. Like it does,
yeah,
it takes time and mentorship and community. Like especially I really wanted to reclaim. I started a second business that's sort of shelved right now around reclaiming what that means for women because
yeah,
like women have done things collectively. There's collective wisdom in women. That the reason they're called old wives' tales, old wives' remedies.
yeah,
Like, why are we not doing business collectively? Like, why aren't
yeah,
we sharing our secrets collectively? And there are
yeah,
spaces for that. But that's why I think what business women in business tend to feel really lonely, and
yeah.
you need to find a space, and they are out there.
Yeah, that's so
Um,
true. And funnily enough, that's how we met, because I needed, at that time, I needed lean in because I just felt like I need something that gets me out of the house. I need something that gets me around other people to network, but to get me in a position where, not that I feel like I'm forced to be in there, but at least if, because to me, if I've got the choice, I love being at home. I love being on my own too much. But at least if I've got something where I've committed to doing something, I know I'm not gonna just turn around and be like, no, I'm not gonna do it. So yeah, definitely that loneliness, that's not fun.
yeah, yeah, and I think it's solvable, but it can feel really overwhelming to be like, which group is right for me? How do I even find them?
Yeah,
And that takes time.
yeah, that's so true. And so what are you currently working on that's exciting you? Because obviously we've talked about like the pain points and so on, but the reason that we're in business is to have the flexibility to do whatever you want, and there are like positives in that. So what have you got going on at the moment?
Yeah, I'm sort of like I had a quiet period. So I had taken a very intentional quiet period from about October to March last year. And then my grand was unwell. And then
Mm,
I came back and like summer had started and the world sort of gets quieter, especially over in Northern Ireland, where not all my clients are here, but a good chunk are. And
yeah,
um, so I was kind of had a year of like, oh gosh, is there enough clients? Is there enough money? Like,
yeah,
and there was, but it was a little bit of like, a little bit more grind and hustle than
yeah.
I would have liked to make that happen. And now, like, I don't know what's happening, but the clients are flooding in. And I've just decided, you know
Amazing.
what, I'm going to go through and just let myself have this really busy period. So I'm just going, it's going to be a wild ride between now and the end of the year, but it's
Yeah,
only what, like 9 weeks left or something. So
yeah.
I've got this.
You definitely
And yeah, so that's going to be a thing. I'm also setting up, I've been, like I said, pivoting away from working exclusively with small or with solopreneurs to
do. Yeah,
working with slightly bigger businesses. So not huge businesses. I still like micro
yeah,
businesses, but so I'm networking all the time lately, trying to just build a different type of community around my business,
yeah,
a different audience, which is exciting, but new and
yeah,
scary and hard.
yeah.
I'm also, as a part of that, sort of have started a group with another gal, Amanda, and we've started what we're calling business buds.
Love it.
So we are both North American. She's Canadian and I'm American, and we both live here in Northern Ireland. And we just wanted a space. So Takuma, but I started recently something called brunch and business. And
Yeah,
that's just like, it's
love it.
just a small community of gals that are right around 30 running their business. Most of us like are child free, not all of us, but and just a space for that. And so this is sort of an extension of bigger growth of that, where it's a place for women around 30 to connect and join, and just so and do non-traditional networking. Our first one is we're going for pints. Like that is
Be
we're
great.
gonna business beers. That is the very first event, and we're gonna do business bowling. We're gonna do I don't know. We've got a whole list of things we want to try, but yeah. So I'm excited about all these kind of growth places in my business. As I yeah, as I have some really big financial goals for next year, so that I can yeah, and then yeah, so that I can like go back to America with like fistful of money because it's so
Yeah,
much more expensive there.
yeah. But you know what? It's exciting. It's really inspiring as well because even just from like our brunch one, I like that you're offering different things for different people. But the brunch one, I got so much out of that. We've only had the first one. Like the next one's next week. Okay, sorry, we got a cut off there. Perks of trying to learn all this as you're doing it. But I think I was talking about like loving the fact that we've got like you've set up different types of communities where people can meet depending on what they find comfortable, but just how much you do get out of it as well. Because like you said, the brunch one, it's nice that we can meet at any time anyway, but even the fact that it's focused around people that potentially no, I know some people do have kids, but either don't have kids, don't want kids, that kind of thing. For me, that attracted me because I always wanted to have a business, and I'd love to have kids in the future, and I'd love to settle down and do all that. But on my end, I've just always wanted to find a way that works for me first, so that I'm comfortable in me and who I am before I ever decide to do anything else. I never wanted to build a business thinking this is all for like my future kids and all of that. I wanted it to be about me, and it's you don't normally find people that talk like that. So yeah, it just as soon as you talked about that, I was like, yay! And then I got loads out of it. And I was like, this is exactly what I was looking for.
Like Northern Ireland especially has they have the mums at work group,
Mm,
they have mums in business or like mums in business or something, and then there's women in business and lean in and
yeah,
stuff. But the lean in's quite corporate, and women in business actually leans a little corporate too. There is entrepreneurship space there, but also I remember the very first time I went to an event in Northern Ireland that was all about women in business. I think it was Ladies Who Launched, like the first time they came to Northern
yes,
Ireland, and they had this beautiful panel of speakers telling their business story. And every single one of them started their business on maternity leave. And I
mm,
was like, that is just never going to be my story.
yeah,
And I felt like there are other women doing what I'm doing, but there's also and it's a beautiful story. Like, don't get me wrong. Women starting their business because they want a more flexible life for their families, for their like for their experience, like that
yeah,
is a gorgeous thing, but I just didn't identify with it, and I felt sort of lonely
yeah,
being in business in a different story and
yeah,
never being able to relate to that narrative. So it is really cool to have a space where the vast majority of the women also don't have kids, at
yeah.
least at this stage, and the few that do started their business before they had
Well,
kids.
yeah,
So we're all really related in that. And I think, yeah, it's just it was important to me to have a space that felt like I could talk to people and that it just made sense. Like, right,
yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't have to explain that. Sometimes I felt like when I was starting a business, I had to, I'd be in a community of other women with businesses, and they'd be talking about, the juggle, which is a very real
yeah,
thing, where they're, especially in the pandemic, where they were juggling like childcare, schooling,
yeah,
like the pandemic work. Like those are all really real things. But again, I couldn't really relate, and
yeah,
sort of felt like I couldn't talk about what I was experiencing because what they
yeah,
had was maybe worse or more challenging in a different way. And so yeah, again, I just wanted people that I felt like I had the same experience with.
yeah, yeah. It's so true because I was like, I remember thinking at one point, like, how do I even just say I'm just struggling to look after myself, get out of bed, like the business runs and it does what it needs to do, but I can barely look after myself. But then, like you're saying, you're talking to people that are talking about managing multiple kids, managing partners, cooking, all of that. Like I'm really lucky that like my dad cooks, my boyfriend cooks. If I need to cook for myself, like I love food, but I hate cooking for myself. And when my mental health's bad, I'm really bad with food and I don't eat. Whereas like those things, sometimes it feels like it's a little bit trivial compared to others, but it's just like you said, it's just a different kind of challenge. And it doesn't mean that one's worse than the other, but yeah, it's just a lot harder to talk about when you're not in the space of other people that understand what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the other thing is, and obviously we've talked about this, but entrepreneurship has a really high level of people who are neurodivergent or have
Yeah,
mental health issues. And we start our businesses in part because of those things, because we need the flexibility, we need the essentially the alternative lifestyle,
yeah,
right? For our conditions or our person,
yeah,
essentially. But I spent the first 2, 3 years of my business thinking, this isn't going to be long term. This is never going to succeed. And this was one of the stories I was telling myself, right? Because I can't hack it because I have anxiety. I
yeah,
can't hack it because at some point this is going to become too much for me,
yeah,
which I've had to do some unlearning and
yeah,
realize that I can make it because I have anxiety.
yeah.
I've built it around what I need.
Yeah, that's so true. I was actually, because I'm going for a check-in with my therapist, so I was, because my memory is so bad, and especially the worst, like my mental health is, it's just a complete wipe. So I've been making little notes of things that have been going on, just so I can talk you through what's happening. And one of the, because I've been journaling as well, and I looked back through my journal and realised that I've slowly changed the narrative from my mental health affects me so much that I don't know how am I supposed to run a business? How am I supposed to cope? And especially when I was with my ex, a lot of my focus would be on making sure he was okay. And I remember before I'd left saying, who am I gonna be when it's just me? Like, not that I'm looking for like someone else to blame, but like, am I gonna be able to do this? Like, I could see myself failing because maybe that's what gave me the push to like keep going. Or now I've got the time to like do whatever I can. I felt like it was gonna be bad, whereas now I'm like, actually, my mental health and how I see the world helps me run a business. It helps people connect with me. That's how I get clients, and it's actually such a strength, and that's why I'm getting more and more comfortable with knowing, okay, just change your sleeping schedule, like go to bed later, do what suits you and what works. And it is more fun because I'm feeling a lot better in myself. Like I worked in London last week, stayed in the airport for hours just so I could like clear my inboxes and do what I needed to do. And I was so productive. And that also made me realize like I love traveling, even if it's just sat on a train, whatever it is, as long as I'm somewhere that's not home and not somewhere I'm used to, the motivation it gives me is just something else. 15-year-old me knew something that I didn't even know, but I've always, like, it's like within me, I needed to be a nomad. And it doesn't matter
Yeah.
what that looks like, but just having the flexibility to know that I can pick up my laptop right now and go, do you know what? I'm off for 2 weeks. It's unreal to think that we build these things and then we just sit there and go, oh, but it's not that special. It is special. It's amazing.
I think it can be really challenging as somebody who's like, you're like me. I'm really, really self-critical.
Mm,
I'm an Enneagram 1. So I'm really critical of everyone, but especially more so than anyone else myself. So again, Monica Geller, like think of that. Like,
yeah,
and I really, really struggle to acknowledge my successes.
yeah,
And I think that again is part of um, like the patriarchy. Like again, women are
yeah,
expected to give of themselves,
yeah,
and take no credit.
yeah,
Right. The highest compliment of a woman is that she is selfless, which is
yeah,
bullshit.
yeah,
Um, yeah. So I think it's something that is something that you have to do. Like, I set myself, and actually, this is a good reminder because I haven't even checked them. I set myself goals, and
yeah.
then I give myself rewards if I hit those goals. I haven't even checked if I've hit any of the goals or if I should be rewarding myself. I haven't done that,
You just
right? Like
reminded me
these
of
are
the
things that
same
I've like set up that I
thing.
should be doing, but I forget to do.
Yeah. So because I noticed last year that by the time I'd got to like 8 months of the year, I'd already hit a lot of my goals. I'm trying to set bigger goals. But the idea as well was supposed to be that every month I would check in to see where I am so that I can plan. Because I think part of my anxiety comes from the fact that like I'm just really like I'm finding it easy to like go out for sales, but going out and asking and knowing that I deserve these things coming in really scares me. So if I sit there and focus on knowing, okay, this is the profit that I want to make, this is how it's going to happen, then that puts me in such a vulnerable position that I feel like in my head, I must just go, we've set the goals. We are going to meet them because they're in the back of your mind. But if you check them, then that's just going to give you anxiety. So I don't check them. But I need to get used to doing that because I do hit the goals.
Yeah. I've just taken a course from Ray Dodd called Sell That Thing because one of my money is one of my big goals for
Yeah.
2022 and 2023.
Yeah.
So I've done a lot of learning and foundation building this year to hopefully make some changes more next year. But she was saying I think that was one of the problems I was having earlier in the year was I was so focused on the money that I started that I almost was forgetting that it's more about who I'm helping and making that relationship instead about the numbers. And so from converting just that little bit of switch of like, it's not about the money, it's not about bringing in the money, it's about serving that person and making a difference in their life and their business. And that is, I'm gonna guess that in the time of year is a big reason why the clients are flooding in right now. Because I'm not seeing them as numbers, which sounds really like horrible in a way to say, to admit out loud that I was seeing people as numbers, but it's really easy to do in business because you need the money.
because you have to survive. So as much as because I was saying this the other day, I put a TikTok out saying I'm in a really difficult position because it's Black History Month in the UK and there are barely any brands that are doing what I'd expect. Like there was a whole, during the pandemic, the Black Squares, all of that, like loads of performative things happening. And I really want to give back and I want to be able to have content days with people that would struggle, that wouldn't be able to afford it, to be able to sit and have one-on-ones with people that, like, I really want to give back, but I have to find that balance between, am I going to make enough money this month to cover what I need to cover and to have my team comfortable versus the bits that I want to do. So yeah, I completely get that.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things is when I run so when I ran group programs, I would charge extra for people who could afford it, just a little bit, so that I knew I could offer discounted spaces for people who might need them.
Oh, that's a great idea. So you won't put the pricing out there?
So no, when like the pricing was, it was just, the pricing was out there but then I would say there's a couple of spaces that are pay what you can. And I would put like, and say, all you need to do is get in touch. We'll sort that out. And there would always be a space or two that was pay what you can. And I essentially charged about 10% extra for what I might have charged, what I would, in my head, the cost should have been. And I think what I'm trying to get to the point of doing is doing that for my other services, like the things that aren't a big group program. So if I can get to the point where I'm charging 10, 15% more for average businesses, then I can offer the like 2 or 3 spaces a year that are discounted or ad hoc or what is it that lawyers call it? Essentially free, but it's pro bono.
Pro bono, yes. I was thinking of suits. I was like, I know this one.
But and that's a goal for me too, because I want to support other people, because in my business right now, like obviously I do a lot of effort to be inclusive, and one of the things I do is we make donations every month in my business. Like that is just a built-in part that we donate a certain amount every month, but like that's not enough, like like it's yeah, but it can be really challenging to make sure that you're meeting everybody's needs, and especially coming at this as a white cis het woman for the most part. Like I'm very much in most of the privileged categories, and so like I don't always see my gaps, and that's part of like you're always evaluating, okay, how can I do this better? Like how can I do this better, which includes adding alt text to all my Instagram posts. Like it's those little things, but it's my team and I are constantly checking to see if there's anything else we can do better. And it's just us. So we're not probably always nailing it, but we're trying.
You just have to try. And I always say, even if you just help one person, that's all that matters. As long as one person tunes in, because I've had messages over the years where it's something maybe that had been written years ago and they're saying, oh, that really helped. And I'm like, whenever I get in my head, I always use that as like the perfect example where you never know when you might not even get anything back. Someone might not say anything, but there'll always be people that do appreciate those little things. So I love that you do that. And I could keep talking like all day, and we've carried on. I was like, oh, another 5 minutes, not another 5 minutes. So I will end by saying what our wins of the week are. So what is your win of the week?
It's hard to say because it's only Tuesday, but
I'd go then the last Tuesday to this Tuesday.
I know I'm just trying to think. Um, what is my win of the week? I guess I don't know. I don't I've got a lot of clients coming in and that feels really good.
Yeah,
So that's definitely like I've signed multiple clients in the past week.
yeah,
Um, I had like a Saturday that I did nothing but carve a pumpkin. That was a win because we were in America and then I was in England and then I'm like working throughout all of it. So I
yeah,
hadn't had a time to just like do nothing.
yeah.
So those are probably my two wins. I did nothing on Saturday and I've got a lot of clients coming in, which feels really good after some intentionality in having a slow year and then some unintentional slow periods
Yeah,
as well.
yeah. No, that's amazing. My win of the week is, like I said, in the airport, just being able to clear so much because I felt like I had such a massive backlog that now I can breathe a little bit. So I'm trying to go into the next week having loads of stuff for clients planned ahead so that I can get ahead and sit and focus on the things that I'm enjoying to do more because coming into the winter, my whole body's changing and has changed already. So I just want to make sure that as I'm feeling more tired or lethargic or whatever else, I'm doing the things that make me happy, but I've made sure that the money's still coming in. So
Yeah,
quick win.
very
Well,
cool.
I've really enjoyed having you on, and like there are some that I know that I will definitely have in more people on, and we'll definitely discuss this separately. But I appreciate your vulnerability, honesty, openness, everything that we've talked about because that is the part and parcel of running a business, being in life, and just being a good person. I guess just how open you are because it's going to help. It definitely is going to help someone. And it's helped me, like I said, because for me now, I get to look at the rest of the day and go, I've had a conversation that's made me feel lighter. I can feel a bit more productive. And even if I'm not as productive as I'd want to be, I'll still get enough done. And like, I'll have your voice in my head going, be kinder to yourself.
Yeah, and I think the thing is we don't really need permission in business from people to do what we want to do,
Yeah.
but it's something with somebody else telling you,
Yeah.
and I've had these conversations, somebody else telling you you should and could be charging more for that, or
Yeah.
you could and should be taking calls whenever the hell you want to take calls,
Yeah.
not when other people
Exactly.
tell you.
Yeah.
And getting those little permissions from people
Yeah.
is huge. It's the other reason the community is such a big deal around business.
Yeah. So true. But I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for being on. And I
No
will,
problem. Thank you
everyone,
for having me.
you're welcome. I will link all of your bits in the comments below and we share it on social media. Everything will be done there. So if everyone can keep liking, subscribing, commenting, let us know if you want to hear anything else. So if there's anything specific you want to hear more of, like from Ellie, because like I've said, we could talk about so many different elements of what we've talked about today, but this is
Yeah.
a good starting point. So I will see you guys next week. Bye.